Hello everyone and welcome back to another Force of Will deck profile video. Today is version 2.0 of Lucifer. What are Lucifer's abilities? If you've watched the other video, you would already know. His judgment is cost of 5, energized with all rulers. However, whenever he enters the field, your opponent discards 3 cards. When this card enters the field, perform the effect. So just to keep you guys, the reason I'm doing a 2.0 is because I've changed a couple of cards in this deck. I'm using some cards from the Surrow cluster, and I will explain that in just a second. And just from playtesting my previous deck, I realized kind of where my shortcomings were, and I've modified it a little bit in order to make more synergy in the deck. Before I forget, what I wanted to show you guys is the fact that there are some cards, so when you're facing an opponent, there are some cards there which can cancel your Resonators or Resonators ability. So there's cards out there that I've faced when I basically Judgment Lucifer and the opponent has a chance to counter, and they basically play a card or something along those lines which cancels the ability of my card that I just summoned, which kind of sucks. So before the entered ability can actually take effect onto Lucifer, it's already canceled. So just be aware of that. Like this entire Lucifer deck is a discard deck. However, just be aware that there are cards out there which can cancel. However, you can't force your opponent to play that card on a useless card that you have in your deck, and I'll be going through that in just a second. But before I forget, I'm gonna be doing four QR codes for you guys. So number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Now, can you guys please leave a comment below whenever you redeem these QR codes? If you are able to redeem them, if you're one of the lucky few who redeem them, please leave a comment below. It's a nice way for us to kind of gauge how long like people are watching and how boring these videos gonna get. So aside from that, I'm gonna go back to what I was saying. In this deck right now, I do have a few Surrow cluster cards, and for example, something like this, which I'm running 4 of, Refuse Collector. I have 4 of them, and they does come from the Surrow cluster. However, what I wanted to say is that these cards are really cheap. If you guys get involved in your local community, there's pretty cool cards you can get. I'm gonna be showing you guys some of the promo cards you can get, and furthermore, you can actually buy some of these cards online. They're very cheap. Some of these cards can be like less than $2 a piece or 50 cents. In the case of the Refuse Collector, it's not that much. So like, if you guys are actually enjoying this game, you know what, just get involved in your local community. Like for us, we live in Calgary, and I got involved in one of my local community, and it's a lot of fun. The local community I'll be explaining in a second when I got involved in some of the promo cards I got. So starting off the deck, we have the Refuse Collector. As I said, we have 4. Whenever a player discards a card, put a 100 counter on this card. Now, the key to this card is whenever a player, so that means whenever I discard a card or whenever my opponent, so potentially this card can get quite big. So I'm gonna put Lucifer up in the corner. We have Refuse Collector of 4. Now, for the next ones, I have 4, not 4, but here's kind of discard cards that I am currently running. I have 4 Thought Controls. These are from the Surrow cluster. However, this specific version of the card, the shiny version, is actually a promo card from my local store, which is Otterbox over in Calgary. So if you guys are part of Calgary watching these videos in Calgary, you know, just send me a message and we'll kind of get you involved. We always welcome more and more new players, and it's fantastic to get them. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been like every Wednesday night we kind of get together as an FOW community at the store, and we just kind of play. And then they always offer promo cards. And with going with my son, I've managed to get 4 of these Thought Control cards, which are fantastic. So what does this card do? Your opponent reveals their hand. Choose a card with total cost 3 or less. Discard this card. 4 of those. Next, as was the case with version 1.0 of the deck, we have 4 Looks of Corruption. Look at your opponent's hand, choose a card with total cost 4 or less. They discard that card. If you awaken the card for a total cost of 3, you can discard 5 or more. So if you, for example, if you use Thought Control and you realize they have a really big card, you can go ahead and use Look of Corruption, or the Awakening on Look of Corruption, in order to get rid of that big card. So far we have eight control cards. Next we have Look of Despair. For a total cost of 3, your opponent discards 2 cards. If I have no cards in my hand, your opponent discards 3 cards instead. I have 2 of them, so that's a total of 10 discard cards. Next, which is a Resonator but also doubles as a discard card, we have Shemhaza, the Fallen Angel of Sadism. It has a total cost of 4. It is 1,000. It is a big Resonator. It has flying. It is a Fallen Angel, and I'll explain why a Fallen Angel a little bit later as to why I want Fallen Angels. Enter. Your opponent discards a card when a card enters the field. Perform the effect. So this can, I have 3 of these. This can actually work as an additional 3 discard cards whenever you summon it. As long as your opponent has 2 or less cards in their hand, this card gains 400. So this card has the potential to be quite big. Now, as I was saying earlier about the judgment on Lucifer, there are some cards out there which can nullify your Resonator's ability or Jade Ruler's kind of ability when they enter. So if you play a card like this, and you know it's only 1 discard, and the opponent really doesn't want to discard a card, you can potentially force them to use a card like that in order to by playing Shemhaza, because that way they'll kind of be forced to be like, I don't want to discard a card, let me play the card and cancel the Resonator's ability, and then that way, you know, you can definitely play Lucifer a little bit later on. So I have 3 of these cards. Okay, next, let's go ahead and continue with the Fallen Angel scenario here in a second. For a cost of 1, I have 4 lower Fallen Angels. They're 300, 400. They're flying, so they might not be that big, but they are flying, so you can bypass quite a lot. So I have 4 of these ones. Bam. Next, we have, for a cost of 3, we have Armoros, the Fallen Angel of Nullification. This guy is a 3 cost, 800, flying, barrier to chant and runes, which is significantly quite good. I've had it a few times where somebody's been like, oh, I'm gonna use a chant, play it in order to do something against this guy. I'm like, but he has barrier. So it's been quite a nice. Run 4 of these guys. Next, for the next Fallen Angel, we have Azazel, the Fallen Angel of Gloom. He is a total cost of 4. However, if you may pay 2 less to play this card if your opponent has 1 or less cards in their hand. So since this is a discard card, ideally you want to use as many discard cards before you summon this guy. Ideally, you always want to play this guy. Since he is quite big, like 900 attack, 1000 defense, you want to always play him for 2, which is fantastic. His enter ability, choose 1. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put a card from among them into your hand and the rest in the graveyard, or target 2 Resonators your opponent controls. Your opponent banishes 2 of them. Now, this only works, the second part of the ability only works if your opponent actually has 2 Resonators to target. You cannot target only 1 Resonator. As it stands, and I have clarified this on the Force Will Facebook page and kind of going through hashtag Edge Judge, you do need to have 2 legal targets in order for this card's ability to work. And I'm running 3 of this one. Now, the reason you might be wondering is, why do you have so many Fallen Angels? And the reason why I have so many Fallen Angel Resonators is for Belial. Now, Belial is a very big card. He costs 6. He's a 1200 Resonator. He does have flying. However, you may pay 3 less for this card if your life is less than 1,000. Basically, when this card enters, all non-Fallen Angel Resonators are destroyed. So the reason why I run so many Fallen Angel Resonators, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, is in order to summon Belial and still keep my Resonators on the field. And I'm currently running 2. However, I have come into circumstances where I needed to run more than 2, and that's where the side deck comes into play. Okay, next I have 2 more Resonators. The first Resonator being Aborozuki. She is a vampire. It is a 2 cost. She's 600. Okay, when this card enters, you may banish a Resonator. If you do, put a Fresh Blood counter on this card. A Fresh Blood counter on this card gives a 200 and flying until the end of the turn. Whenever you attack with a Aborozuki, you are able to banish a card. If you do, target Resonators gets -400, -400 until the end of the turn. So you can easily kind of choose your targets quite wisely. Her last is the ability, which costs 4. So for a total cost of 6 of playing this card, destroy all J rulers. However, I'm going to say this because I just realized it by reading it now. This also destroys your own J ruler. So be careful with this card. I mean, like, think about it in advance how you want to play this card. I'm running 3 of these. Next, we have 3 Disgraced Knights. Disgraced Knight is a zombie. It is an 800-700 card and costs total cost of 3 mana. This card, the way I like to using it, as the way you should be using it, is whenever it is killed, it goes into the graveyard. And its ability, for a cost of 1 darkness, remove 3 cards from your graveyard from the game. Put this card from your graveyard into the field. Play this only during your turn. You cannot play this during your opponent's turn. However, if it is your turn, you can easily bring it back by destroying cards. Because we have so many cards that are going to be like destroyed. For example, 4 Look at Corruptions, 4 Thought Controls, 2 Look at Despairs, and for example, if we banish small Resonators like the Refuse Collectors, we can easily get rid of those and bring them back. Just about any card you see here, we're able to banish from the graveyard because we really don't have, in this deck, current version of the deck, I don't have any way of bringing anything back from the graveyard. This is not a summoning deck. The only way for me to bring something back is actually using the Disgraced Knight's ability. So basically, you can banish any card you want without having to worry, am I going to need this card later on? Am I going to need to pull it back? No, this version of the deck does not have any cards in order to be able to pull out of the deck. However, there's a caveat to that, and you will see the caveat in a second as soon as I get to the side deck. The last 4 cards are Life-Severing Blades. This is a quick cast for a cost of 3. If a Resonator you control was put into the graveyard from the field this turn, you may pay 2 less to play this card. Since it is a quick cast, I can play it on either my turn. For example, if I banish a Resonator, whenever you banish a Resonator, unlike Magic, whenever you banish a Resonator and force a will, it goes straight to the graveyard. It does not get removed from the game. The only way you can remove cards from the game is if it specifically says on the card, this card gets removed from the game. So just be aware of that. When I was first learning to play this game, I was kind of like, well, banish just means I put it out of the game. No, it means you put it into the graveyard. So this is potentially, because you pay 2 less for this card, if a Resonator, one of your Resonators went to the graveyard, it is a total cost of 1. So basically, I like abusing this card a lot. Whether it be sacrificing, so what I can do is I can, for example, summon a Borozuki, I sacrifice, for example, a Refuse Collector, and she gains the Fresh Blood counter for 200, 200 and flying, and then I can, for example, play Life-Severing Blade because Refuse Collector went into the graveyard, and I can target one of my opponent's Resonators and destroy. So I run 4 of these cards. I wish I had more alternate art, like the full arts, but unfortunately I don't. I only have, so yeah. Okay, so this is the deck as it is. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total, well, not 5, 4 total Fallen Angel Resonators. I have Disgraced Knight simply for being able to summon him back from the graveyard. I have a Borozuki simply for the Destroy All Gerald's ability. Also, she's probably one of my second favorite cards, and I really like the artwork. So, as you probably already have noticed, that's one of the reasons why I run 3 full art versions of hers, because I simply like that card. Now, going into the runes, they've changed slightly, not very much since the last time you've seen them. One of my favorite cards, and I like playing this card a lot. However, I may be playing it wrong because 99.9% of the time, I play it during my first turn. And ideally, you want to play it later on when you use Look at Corruption, Thought Control, or Look of Despair. For a total cost of 0, a divinity cost of 2, your opponent discards a card at random. I'm going to actually put it right down here. Black Rosario for a cost of 2, mana cost of 2, divinity 2. Play this card only if your J ruler is Lucifer or Lucifer Fallen Angel of Sorrow. Your opponent banishes 2 Resonators. Very nice card. What I have added is a quick cast Sword of Lament. It is a 3 cost, divinity cost of 3, destroy target J ruler, which is fantastic. I love this card. cost of 2, Divinity cost of 2, Demon Division. Search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. Now, most of the ways I've actually played Demon Division is to look for Belial. Since I'm only running 2 Belials in the deck, sometimes he may be stuck on the bottom of the deck. Or if you start the game and you have 2 Belials, for example, let's say you have 2 in your hand and you want to mulligans, I usually put both of them at the bottom of the deck, and I know I can summon the card right back with this. The last quick cast rune I have is Jet Black Wings, cost of 3, Divinity cost of 3. Resonators your opponent controls gain -600 until the end of the turn, so this affects their entire field, which is very, very nice. Now, Magic Stones, I still have yet to figure out how to properly use this. For example, Magic Stone of the Undead. I have a feeling like this card would be more useful for a Lich deck because you can summon things out of your graveyard. For this version of my Lucifer deck, since I do not summon anything from the graveyard with the exception of Disgraced Knight, which can pull himself back, I really do not use the second ability. I'll mainly use it just for the looks and mainly use it to produce Darkness Stones. So I'm running 4 of these, 2 regular Darkness Magic Stones, and 4 Magic Stones of Corruptions. This produces a Darkness O for a cost of 2. Banish a card. Your opponent discards a card. Play this ability only during your main timing. Main timing is any time you can play non-quick cast cards. Now, a fun way to actually use this card is, for example, if you have a Refuse Collector out, or if you have a Disgraced Knight out, you can be like, okay, I'm going to banish Disgraced Knight. I'm going to bring him back, and so basically, okay, getting a little bit too ahead. So I'm gonna banish a card, banish Disgraced Knight. Your opponent discards a card, so I can force my opponent to, oh wait, banish this card. Okay, never mind. I am totally wrong about that idea. So if I banish this card, my opponent discards a card. So it can be another source of force discards cards. Now, for the side deck, while playing and playtesting this, I've kind of realized that first big thing to remember, your jailer, a card's or any Resonator's ability can be nullified. There are cards out there which can nullify them. 2, throughout playtesting, I've realized that if I'm facing like something like a fire deck, I do want some life gain. I will not be able to survive a fire, like a burn deck from fire, if I do not have any form of life gain. So those are 2 things. Third thing I've realized is that if I'm facing difficult opponents which want to discard their own cards, some of these cards are kind of useless. So I may want to remove some of them and add different ones. And number 4, what I've realized is that sometimes you may want to have more than 2 Belials. So with that in mind, let's go over to the side deck and kind of what I've added on my side deck. For example, if you're playing somebody who doesn't have, like, who wants to have discard, like who wants to have as little of a hand as possible, then you want to switch out Refuse Collector, and I want to put in something like Skeleton Horde. Why? Skeleton Horde is because when this card is put into the graveyard from the field, put a 100/100 Darker Skeleton Resonator into the field. The reason for in the side deck for skeletons, I can switch out the Refuse Collector, for example, for the Skeleton Horde, or I'll leave the combinations up to you guys. Like, comment below if you guys have different combinations which you think will work better. A Zeal is another one I added into the side deck because sometimes I do want to run 4 because I force my opponent to discard so quickly. I actually want to play more Zeals because it's a very low cost card, because for a cost of 2 and its entry ability is quite nice. The other one, sometimes I may want to run more Shemhaza in order to force them to discard a little bit more cards. Now, probably one of my favorite cards is Vlad the Insatiable. This is a 1,000,000 card. It is quite a big card. It has a total cost of 4 stones. It has flying. Banish a Resonator, take this card. Sorry, this card gains drain until the end of the turn. If I work in skeletons with Vlad, I can potentially banish the skeleton. This card gains drain. I flip over the skeleton because we'll assume the flipped over version is the 100 skeleton resonator. I can banish it again. This card does not state how many times I can banish it. Banish your resonator. This card gains drain until the end of the turn. You can banish as many times as you want, so you can potentially stack multiple drains, which is fantastic. So for something like the burn deck I was telling you about, the fire burn deck, if I start stacking at least 2 drains and I attack with 1,000, I potentially get back 2,000 health. Second, this card has quite a lot of abilities and it's part of the starter deck, which is quite nice. Banish another resonator. Target J resonator gains +200/+200 until the end of the turn. So potentially I can banish 2 things, get two drains, banish a third thing, gain 200/200, so this card becomes 1,200/1,200. Banish another resonator. Target J resonator gains -200/-200. I'm running 3 of those in my side deck. Next is the Immortal Commander. And you may be wondering, why is the Immortal Commander in here? In all honesty, this is a test. I haven't really play tested this very much, but I'm going to, and you know, I'll keep updating you guys throughout the my Force of Will career type thing, and let you guys know if, like, version 3.0 of this deck, see if this card did work or not. If you guys have suggestions on what I can switch out for the Immortal Commander, please let me know. The only reason I wanted to put this guy in is he's flying, he's 700/700, cost of 3. Search your deck for a skeleton or zombie, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So for example, I can search my hand for Disgraced Knight in order to pull it out faster, or potentially Skeleton Horde, because it is a very cheap card. I'm only running 3 of these, and the reason I'm running 3, I'll explain in just 1 second. Next one is Disgraced Knight, simply because if I want to have 4 Disgraced Knights in my deck, and I want to run, for example, less discard cards, depending on, again, this is highly depending on the opponent you're facing in their current deck. And then lastly, 2 Belials. I have faced opponents in the past where I needed more than 2 Belials in my deck, and simply because of that, I've added 2 extra Belials in my side deck. Now, the best way I've realized is, in order for me to kind of really understand how these decks, what the synergy of these decks is really like, is to actually go out and play test. And the best way to go out and play test is not just play, for example, like in my household, it's me and my son that currently play this game, but you want to go out and join your Force of Will community. Like, go out, look on Facebook, and there's a Force of Will group on Facebook, which is for all of North America. It's Force of Will the US, actually. It's mostly meant for the US, but it's for all of North America. Post on there and just be like, hey, I live in this city, is there any players? And you will be amazed how many players you'll be able to find in your current city. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I got involved through Out of the Box. I got involved in my local Force of Will community, and it's been fantastic. I've gained quite a few friends from there, and they've been able to not only give me cards like this to kind of help me grow my deck, but also they've been able to come and help me playtest. I've been able to playtest different rulers, different scenarios, kind of come under different, basically just kind of figure out what works and what I need to change. And they've also come along and they've been like, here, try working this card. Like the example of all the Fallen Angel Resonators was given to me by Dayman, who said basically, you know what, if you want to summon Valhalla, you don't want to kill all your creatures. You definitely do not. And as such, run as many Fallen Angel Resonators as you can. The other benefit of getting involved in your Force of Will community is cards like this, which are promo cards. And there's a lot of promo cards. And there's different ones depending on how big your store is and how many, like, basically what I want to say is, depending on how big your community is, your store might bring you more than just a few promo cards. You might be getting quite a lot of promo cards, which is quite nice. So get involved. That's all I can say is get involved. And lastly, if you guys are part of YYC Calgary, where we live, if you guys want to get involved, shoot us a message, drop us a comment, and that's about it. If you guys enjoyed this version 2.0 of the deck profile for Lucifer, please leave a like, comment below on what I can possibly change. And aside from that, peace out everybody, and I will see you guys in the next video.